Here is the story you have all been waiting for.
Tom, this is what happened with the Swedish girls. The Swedish girls? What? Oh boy.
Well, good afternoon. Welcome back to the Cranky Old Historian. I'm John McKay. I am the Cranky Old Historian, or today I'm going to be the Cranky Old Paramedic. I got a good EMS story for you. This one's a good one. This is probably my favorite EMS story of my entire career. Back in 1982, I was a emergency medical technician, an EMT at Grady Memorial Hospital's Emergency Medical Service in Atlanta, which is we called the Knife and Gun Club. It was the big urban EMS. Everybody wanted to work there, action-packed, great place to work, phenomenal medics. It was actually probably my favorite job I ever had. That was a great, great service. I knew some great, great people there too. But back in 1982, that summer was a really, really hot summer. And July 2nd, 1982, had been 105 degrees that day in Atlanta. My regular partner, Mark Royal, we had been together for a little while at that point, and we were together for most of my career at Grady. We were riding together on our regular 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift, and we had a third rider with us, a student EMT named Craig Coster. He had never been on an ambulance before. He was still in EMT school. This is something that they normally did towards the end of the school. Is they'd ride with a regular with a real ambulance and see what it was like. And to tell you the truth, it was not particularly unusual to have people just quit. You know, they'd ride, and I think my record was 1 hour, one call, and they decided that wasn't for them, and they went on to something else, which is good. You know, that way you don't get too deep into it, and okay. But that day, Craig was riding with us. We were in our normal unit 100, which was a good old ambulance, Type 1 ambulance. Mark had rebuilt the engine on it. It was fast. Air conditioning didn't work, but it was fast. Air conditioning did not work in front or back, but hey, what, you can't have everything. A little after 9 o'clock that night, we got a call. Trust Company Bank Building, see the guard at the security dock, trouble unknown. Well, we'd already run a couple of heat exhaustion calls, and kind of figured this is going to be another one. Didn't think anything much about it. Drove up there on Piedmont Road to the Trust Company Bank Building, and guard came out, walked up to us and said, hey man, I used to be a Navy corpsman and it looks like heat exhaustion to me. Well, kind of what we were expecting, so okay. And he said, but there's a whole bunch of them. And I said, what do you mean a whole bunch of them? He said, well, there's like a whole peapot full of them up there. And well, thanks for that precise update, So I told Mark and Craig, I said, y'all load up that stretcher and go ahead and call in for a couple of backups, and I'll go ahead and run upstairs and do triage. And triage is what you do when you have multiple patients. It's not first come, first serve. You have a very strict protocol that you follow, and that is the most injured that can be saved go first. The second is the what we would call walking wounded, the second level of trauma or whatever. Third level is just relatively minor injuries, and the dead or the ones that are going to die come last. And that sounds harsh, but that's the way that it has to be so that most people live. So also at Grady in those days, Grady was kind of the Wild West in those days, and a lot of things went on. If a really juicy or really interesting sort of call would come in, other ambulances would try to jump it, is what we call it. Like, for example, there was a notorious strip club named the Cheetah 3, and I remember we got a call in there into the dressing room, as a matter of fact. And we were literally 6 blocks away. I mean, we were going to be there in seconds. And we must have had every other ambulance on that shift going, I'm on it. I'm closer. No, you're not closer. I can see the place from here. It's like, no, you're not. But I heard Mark. I had my radio with me. And I heard Mark call in and say, hey, we need a couple of more units. So here we don't know. We have an unknown number of casualties. We're checking it out right now. And the dispatcher hesitated. Say, okay, well, sounds interesting at least. So maybe some people will jump. Not a single one, nothing. So she assigned 3 more units to us, and it was obvious from their replies that they were not real happy about it. 10-4. I'm coming. Okay, well, I'm kind of laughing about that. I rode the elevator up to the 9th floor. We get off. Guard never said another word to me. The whole way up. Get out, start walking down the hall. It's dark. It's 9 o'clock at night, on a regular weekday. And walking down, and there's this office at the end of the hallway that's all lit up. And while we're walking down towards it, I see this just bombshell, drop dead, gorgeous blonde walking across inside the office. And I turn to the guard, says, "That place?" And he kind of nods. Yeah. Well, come on, man, let's go. And when I hit the doorway, I just stopped dead in shock. Now, it's hard to make me speechless, but I was truly, truly speechless. There was a sea, and I mean a sea, of young, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, stunningly beautiful women lying literally over every square inch of this office, every piece of furniture and all that. I was young, unsaved, and not married at the time, so this piqued my interest. Even though, while I'm standing there looking at them, I kind of went, oh yeah, it's they're all very red-faced, and you could tell that the diarrhea and the vomiting has started, and it's like, okay. And I'm standing there like, okay, trying to honestly trying to get my wits about me and think about this. And this man walks up, and he's kind of laughing a little when he sees me, because I'm just like this. And he explained what the situation was. He said he is the Swedish consul to Atlanta, like a diplomat. And this was the Swedish consulate. It's like an embassy, but, like for a smaller city than their main embassy. And he explained that these were all 18 to 20-year-old college students doing a cultural exchange tour of Canada and the United States. He explained that they had come down from Canada the night before, had never been in the kind of heat like we have in Atlanta in the summertime, ever in their entire life. And on top of that, they've been going around town all day doing their colorful native dances in their colorful native, very hot woolen dresses. They'd skipped lunch for some reason. I never did find out why. It was like, what? And it's like, for some reason, they skipped lunch. And they had gotten back to the consulate, that evening, and were eating snacks and stuff. And I think they were getting ready to go out. And they all just started dropping like flies. And he also explained, he said, these women all spoke English, but because their illness and distress, that they were having a hard time, they would have a hard time communicating with us. So he said his whole staff was inbound to help us with coordination and with translation and all that. And he said, I also said most of the women were okay, but they were sick and they were really hot. But there was one back in his office he really, really wanted me to see. He wanted me to check her out first. And I started to key up the radio and say, well, I did key up the radio. No, I started to key up the radio and say, tell everybody that we needed some more people. And I had a hard time living this one down for a long time. And the guy asked me, so I'm getting ready to talk, and I'm telling him, okay, we got the cavalry coming, and, we're going to check out this one woman you want us to see first, but, I need to make sure we got a lot more people coming, because we're going to need them, because there's like 36 women in there. And so he says, oh, well, is there anything we can do in the meantime before, all your people get here? And I said, well, yeah, get them out of these dresses. That's just holding in all of that, heat. I mean, this is bad. And he turned around and shouted in Swedish, take off those dresses. Bam! They are naked instantly. I mean, instantly. And naked as the day they were born. And they were all, to all appearances, healthy. Let's just leave it at that. And I remember thinking at the time, I have to learn how to say that. Well, the problem was just before he said that, I had clicked the microphone to say, hey, we need to strike the disaster plan. And the very first word everybody on the net heard me say was, "Oh my good Lord." And then there was silence for a second. And I said, okay, hey, 104 or whatever we were that night. We need to strike the disaster plan. I need a supervisor here, blah, 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 and all that. And then everything got really serious. I mean, it was, it got really, really serious at that point. Walked back to the office with him, and they had a young lady up on his desk. And she was in bad shape. She was in a condition called heat stroke. This is very, very serious, and you can easily die from this. It's where your body has gotten heated to the point to where it can no longer regulate itself. You quit sweating. The skin is hot and dry to the touch. It's a very, very dangerous condition. And by this time, I radioed down to Mark and said, y'all get up here now. We got to load and go. And that's what got everybody's attention, was me saying that. And my supervisor that night was a fantastic medic named Tom Lyles, who was one of our usual shift supervisors. But he was caught up in something not fun, as he put it later. And instead, there was somebody else. I cannot remember who it was. And he hollered at me, says, y'all load and go, John. I'm almost there. I'm almost there. It's like, good. And everybody's getting really serious. And it's like, okay, let's. They ended up hacking some more ambulances. They got us a MARTA bus. And you may wonder why. Well, you don't need an ambulance for everybody if they can walk. So, MARTA buses make great sense. And we've got a hospital just a couple of blocks away from this place, Crawford Long. So we're going to go there. Mark and Craig got up there, came in. I watched them hit the doorway and then do the same thing I did, just like, oh, look at this. Except they're all naked at this point. It's like, okay. And I'm like, okay, you looked long enough. Come on, we got to load and go. So they ran back there. We got the girl on our stretcher. Took off. I managed to get a line started on her in the unit in the 2 or 3 block ride over there to Crawford Long, and that was about it. Then the whole world showed up, and I rated over. Okay, you need us back? No, you hang out there. Crawford Long at that time was which is Emory Midtown, I think it's what it's called now. I'm not positive about that. But back then, it was a very small ER. I want to say it only had 6 beds. So we knew we were going to have to help out there. This was typical of EMS if you went to one of the smaller hospitals, and we had a bunch of them around at that time that had small ER staff, and you had a major incident. You ended up staying and working there. So that's what happened. In the end, we had a total of 36 patients from that one scene. 1 critical. About 8 serious, and the rest were walking wounded. We were there for about an hour trying to, starting lines and helping the girls get settled down and cooled off and hydrated and, started a lot of IV lines, things like that. And towards the end, we were getting ready to wrap it up and head back to Grady, and the consul came up to me and said, thanked us for what we had done. And oh yeah, happy to be of service. And he said, well, we've been talking and we decided we need to cancel the rest of this tour. Well, that's a great idea. You need to do that. But he said, we can't fly out till like next week. I don't remember what day of the week this is, but they couldn't fly out till the next week. So he said, well, I'm going to have I'm going to arrange for a picnic at Stone Mountain this Saturday. Will you and your partner be our guest? Yes, we will. And we went. The girls were very nice, very gracious, great host, and were very happy to see us, and that's all I'm going to say about that. One kind of follow-up funny, back on the Grady ramp, it took us a long time to get 100 back up and shape, get all the stuff we needed back on and all that. And Craig was there, and honestly, I had forgotten about him. He hadn't said much of anything that I know of, and he pitched in and worked just like the rest of us. He turned out he was a great medic in training at that point, and he pitched in. He said, hey, before we went back on service, he said, hey, can I ask you fellas a question? It's like, sure. And, oh, yeah, by the way, you did really good tonight. And he said, well, that's my question. Do y'all get many calls like this? And I remember that Mark just kind of yanked his chain and went, oh, yeah. There's naked women every night. You just get tired of seeing it, Just wish they put some clothes on every once in a while. And I'm like, kid, you need to go home and write this down in your diary because you are never, ever going to see another call like this. And I doubt seriously he ever did. And that's my 36 young naked Swedish women call. Never heard from them again. Me and Mark had little Swedish flags on our ID tags from then on. And so did everybody else who showed up. They went around and were handing us like little Swedish flag pins is what we wore up there. And little flags and pins and other kind of stuff. Bric-a-brac stuff. But it's like one of these calls where, it was simultaneously kind of funny and very unusual and very, very serious. We could have lost that girl real easy. And I think we got there in the nick of the time and got her out of there and got her to where she could get properly treated quickly. So all in all, it was a great call. One sad note, Craig, I never met him again. He went on to somewhere else. I've heard from other people that he ended up becoming a really phenomenally good paramedic. He went all the way up and was really, really good, and then he passed away some years ago. So it's just a shame that such a fine young man passed away so early. Tom, here's a picture that I took as we were back on the ramp, and Tom had come back from whatever he was doing, and we were explaining to him what had happened. And you could tell by the look on his face that he did not appreciate having to miss that particular call. And for many, many, many years, that was just a very famous call. I've mentioned it since to people that from the old days, and they're like, oh man, were you the guy on the Swedish women call? It's like, oh yeah. That's the world of EMS kind of in a nutshell, is that call, I think, to me, is you get calls like that, and they're fun calls, they're legitimate calls, but they've got some unusual things about it, something you can talk about to your grandkids. A lot of the times EMS is just drudgery. It's ugliness. You see the bad side of people, you see the bad side of situations, and this one was just a nice exemption from that. If anybody out there knows some 60-ish year old Swedish women who've all talked about the handsome EMTs who came to rescue them that one night in Atlanta, I sure would like to hear about that. I would love to hear back from those people. But that's my EMS story for today. I've hoped you enjoyed this short little story, and hope to see you again here on the Cranky Old Historian.